What is communism? Communism is a socio-economic ideology that seeks to create a classless, stateless society where people collectively own and control resources. It is based on the idea that capitalism and private property are the root causes of inequality, exploitation, and oppression, and that a socialist revolution is necessary to overthrow the capitalist system. In a communist society, the means of production, including factories, land, and natural resources, are collectively owned and managed by the people, rather than being privately owned by capitalists. This means that the profits from production are distributed equally among all members of society, rather than being concentrated in the hands of a few wealthy individuals. Historically, communism has been implemented in various forms, with different degrees of success. The most well-known example is the Soviet Union, established in 1917 and collapsed in 1991. Other countries, such as China, Cuba, and North Korea, have also implemented communist systems, but with varying degrees of success and controversy. Critics of communism argue that it leads to the concentration of power in the hands of the state, and that it stifles individual freedom and creativity. They also point to the failures of past communist regimes, such as economic stagnation, corruption, and human rights abuses. Understanding communism. The term communism is not a monolithic ideology, but rather a broad concept that encompasses various beliefs and systems. Its roots can be traced back to the 18th century when Victor Dupay, a French aristocrat, proposed communal living where the property would be shared and everyone would benefit from each other's work. However, this idea was not entirely new, as similar concepts of communal living can be found in history, such as the koinonia system described in the Book of Acts, which inspired religious groups like the 17th century English diggers to reject private ownership. Thus, the concept of communal living and shared ownership has existed in various forms throughout history, and communism is a modern term that encompasses these ideas. The Communist Manifesto. Communist ideology originated during the French Revolution and was further developed in Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels' Communist Manifesto, published in 1848. This influential tract rejected earlier communist philosophies that were influenced by Christianity and instead proposed a materialist and purportedly scientific analysis of human society's history and future direction. Marx and Engels famously declared, "The history of all hitherto existing society is the history of class struggles." According to the Communist Manifesto, the French Revolution was a pivotal moment in history because it saw the rise of the bourgeoisie, the merchant class that gained control over the means of production and brought about the modern capitalist era. This class conflict replaced the medieval struggle between the nobility and serfs with a new one between the owners of capital and the working class, or proletariat, who sell their labor for wages. Marx, Engels, and their followers advocated for a global proletarian revolution as the inevitable next step in history. This revolution would lead to a socialist era and eventually to communism. The Soviet Union, Marx and Engels' communist theories were put into practice after their deaths with the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia in 1917, which saw a group of radical Marxists, led by Vladimir Lenin, come to power and establish the Soviet Union. Lenin had developed the idea of vanguardism, which called for a small group of enlightened elites to lead the way towards socialism and communism. However, under Stalin's dictatorship of the proletariat, the Soviet state became a powerful one-party institution that prohibited dissent and controlled the economy through central planning. While this system enabled rapid industrialization, it also led to chronic shortages of consumer goods and the emergence of underground markets that were essential to the party's functioning. Despite the Soviet Union's initial economic growth, it ultimately fell behind its capitalist, democratic counterparts and suffered from a lack of consumer spending. Attempts at reform in the 1980s, such as perestroika and glasnost, did not halt the economic decline and likely contributed to the collapse of the communist state in 1991, Communist China. After years of war with the Chinese Nationalist Party and Imperial Japan, Mao Zedong's Communist Party finally took control of China in 1949, establishing the world's second major Marxist-Leninist state. Mao allied with the Soviet Union, but their policies of de-Stalinization and peaceful coexistence with the capitalist West caused a diplomatic split in 1956.